Okay.
Hello, everybody. Welcome. I'm Sam Laprade. Welcome to the Capacity Building Institute. We get together here every it's the Monday, the first Monday of every month, and I love it. I learned so much from all of our great panelists. And today we're going to be talking about communication fundamentals. And if you haven't heard Alex Keenan speak, you are going to love it. We're going to have a great conversation, Alex and I, today about communications. We're both so passionate about that. So I certainly look forward to spending time with Alex. But before we get to Alex, my new friend Natushka is going to join us. Hi, Natushka.
Thank you, Sam. My name is Natushka Michalfrey, and I am the new outreach coordinator for CBI. Let me talk to you about CBI. To start with, CBI stands for Capacity Building Institute. We provide training, coaching, and mentorship support to staff and volunteers in the environmental nonprofit sector across Canada. We aim to foster leadership within the environmental sector by providing, like I just said, training, coaching, and mentorship at all stages, from executive director to board members, fundraisers, and other staff. Our mission is to train 10,000 leaders of small shop nonprofit environmental organizations in Canada within the 10 next year. We believe that Canada Environmental deserves all the help it can get from well-run nonprofit organizations, from donors, and from well-trained staff and board members. We believe, number two, that environmental nonprofits plays a vital role in the ongoing effort to ensure a healthy and sustainable future for all Canadians. Number three, we believe that training matters. It helps keep our organization well staffed, fully compliant with laws and regulation, and effective in their game changing work. We believe, number four, that small shop organization makes a big difference. They have diversity, dynamics, and grassroots involvement in Canada environmental sector. And the last, number five, we believe that there is much more to do. A strong and more resilient environmental sector is within our reach if we have the courage and the commitment to build it all together. What do we offer? We offer the Capacity Building Certificate Program, which is also called CBCP, with I will talk a little bit more for that. Internship training program, fundraising intensive workshop, capacity building webinar series, leadership training stream. The CBCP is our flagship program for EDs and program managers. The applications are currently open for 2023, and the deadline is May 5th, 2023. In partnership with Eco Internship, we also offer the ITP for interns new to the ENGO sector. If you are interested to learn more, you can visit their website or email Anna. We also offer the fundraising intensive, which involves more direct coaching for fundraising for your organization. We also have the CISCORE models and a code from Dominique Souris, who really highly recommend the Capacity Building Certificate program after entering it. We have great leaders. We're going to have today Sam and Alex, who's going to be joining us and talking to us more. We also have Rob and Barb. Today's sponsor is from Canadian Environmental Network, or you could say RCEN, who's a nonpartisan, nonprofit network of environmental organizations and provincial affiliated networks from across Canada. Through combined affiliated networks, they strive to support more than 400 Canadian environmental non-governmental organizations, (ENGOs), with coordination, communication, and network services. They have supported ENGO participation with Government of Canada departments and agencies, such as Environmental and Climate Change Canada, Canadian Environmental Assessment Agency, Natural Resources Canada, and Health Canada. Through our membership with RCEN, organizations and individuals can benefit from networking opportunities, joining their national caucuses, participating at delegated selections, and attending conferences. RCEN currently has 4 active caucuses, which are formal working groups that bring together environmental, environmentalists from different non-governmental organizations. Their caucuses act as an avenue for participation and consultation with the federal government on issues related to biodiversity, environmental planning and assessment, toxics, and sustainable development goals, SDGs. For more information and to join, you can reach out to their website, caucuses at rcen.ca. RCEN also hosts events for members or for the greater environmental community, such as monthly speed networking events where participants have the opportunity to connect with like-minded individuals in the Canadian environmental sector and learn from experienced guest speakers. Their next talk will be April 19 at 12 p.m. ET with youth climate activist MG Forrest. Anyone interested can register through the SDG caucus page on their website, rcen.ca/SDG caucuses. We are pleased if you could connect with us, whether Anna, who's the operation manager, or me, Letitia Michelle Flake, who are the outreach coordinators. You could email us or go on her website, or you could even write to us through with the address 126 F Billings Avenue. Don't forget, we have the next webinar on May 8th at 4 o'clock, and the title is Financing for Small Shops. Thank you. Back to you, Sal.
This conversation today with Alex, I think, will be very eye-opening in terms of communication. So feel free to grab a fresh piece of paper or make some notes on your phone, however you want to do it. I think you'll walk away with lots of different things today to implement right away in terms of your own organization. Gives me great pleasure to welcome my fellow colleague here at CBI, and that is Alex Keenan. Hi, Alex.
Hello, Sam.
There she is. We were joking before the webinar that we could talk about communications for like a day and a half. We're going to try and keep it down to the time we have today, but I want to introduce formally Alex to you. Alex is a public speaking and communications consultant who served on boards and committees for several nonprofits, including grassroots, provincial, national organizations. She brings a wealth of knowledge to us today. She's passionate about sustainable communities, protection of wild spaces, and building a strong, well-resourced nonprofit sector. In her previous career, Alex worked as legal counsel for First Nations in Ontario and Quebec, and then she went on to start her own business. You want to make a note of this, Stage Light Communications, which provides communication strategies, training, facilitation for organizations and professionals. Alex grounds her work in the principles of creativity, empathy, storytelling, and community building. She combines the art of persuasion. We're going to talk about that. Art of persuasion honed through the years of practice of law with techniques of performative and play that she's learned as an improv performer and teacher. How fun is that? What a great intro. Thank you so much, Alex, for being here. Let's start there. Let's start with the art of persuasion, because that is communications, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. You need to start from the point of what is going to be persuasive, what's going to convince the person that I'm talking to, not necessarily what's going to be convincing to me, but what is going to resonate with them.
Absolutely. So when we think about organizations, and so many of the organizations that are with us today, Alex, are small organizations that, somebody might be wearing 2, 3, 4 hats in some cases. And communication sometimes can slip down the list of things to do. Talk to me a little bit about how we can bring communications to the forefront, really make sure it's part of the core of our work.
Yeah, well, like you say, a lot of people are wearing multiple hats. Maybe you have an intern who is coming in and doing communication, and there's not a lot of time to teach them, here's what's going on. And so one thing that I work with nonprofits to do is to spend a little bit of time at the outset thinking strategically. Who am I trying to reach? Who is the most important audience for me to reach? And so often, when I ask people, who's your audience? They say, well, everybody. And in a perfect world, your audience would be everybody. But when you have limited time, limited money, limited human resources, you need to focus. You need to focus on the people who are interested in helping you and who have the ability to help you. And so you need to start zooming in. Who is the audience that is going to be most effective for us to reach? And how do I reach them? And how do I identify and eliminate the gaps that are preventing them from coming to me and from participating in our mission? And so it's really about just spending, it doesn't have to be a ton of time, thinking about that. And then that's going to eliminate a lot of avenues of, we could do this, but that's not going to be a good use of our resources because it's not going to be reaching the right people. And so it can help trim things down, make it easier for you just to spend a little bit of time at the outset thinking strategically.
Yeah, for sure. That's really great advice. And when we think about communications, often we're seeing a lot of pressure on measuring that, right? The measuring, whether it be likes on Facebook or measuring the impressions or whatever it is. Talk to me a little bit about how maybe smaller organizations can include those metrics piece in terms of communications, but not also get bogged down in it where it takes away from actually communicating.
Right. Well, I think so measurement of communication, it can be very tricky because you never know how people are coming to you. And there's often a circuitous path. I think we'll talk about this later on. It's not just if you build it, they will come. It's if you build it and you promote it and you get out there into the community, word will spread, eventually they will come. And so measurement can be tricky, but I think the key thing is to think about what are the most important metrics. And so it's very easy to measure likes on Facebook. Does that translate into dollars in the bank? Does that translate into, staff who stick around for a long time? Does that translate into, people who are writing to their MP to say, hey, I think you should pay attention to this mission? And so, I think sometimes qualitative measurements can be a bit more helpful for this. It's, are you asking people when they come to you, how did you find us? That's going to be a really important measurement. So that tells you, is your communication strategy, is your approach working? Or do you need to pay more attention to this other thing because the people who really deeply care about your mission are coming to you through this path? So you want to invest more in that path. So it's really kind of identifying what are we trying to accomplish? What are the measurements that are going to tell us whether we're succeeding there? And if you have just a campaign you want people to be aware, then sure, a social media like is going to be relevant because that you're getting in front of eyeballs, you're resonating with people, and they're taking a moment to think about it. If that's not your main objective, then you want to say, who's coming through the door? Where's the money coming from? How are they engaging with us? And does that actually push us forward?
I think we often hear the term, call to action, and that means different things to different people. And depending on, like you say, that strategic objectives and exactly what you've laid out, when you think about call to action, that can mean, okay, we're hoping to get 1,500 letters to Parliament Hill, or it could mean we're hoping to raise $40,000. I mean, it really can determine. And sometimes there's a couple of calls to action, but you have to be really careful about trying to do too much at once, right?
Yeah. You don't want to overload people. And you want to also keep in mind, where is your audience in terms of their engagement with you? Are they ready to respond to a big ask, or do you need to start small so that they, it's something that it's a low barrier, they can do it and they feel good about having helped you, so the next time along they might be willing to do something bigger. And this is something that comes out of behavioral psychology. If someone has done something for you once, they are more likely to do something else for you again. So if you start with the small ask, you plant that seed that they are, they're invested with you now, they've done something to help you, and then you can increase the ask. But you need to know what people are willing to do. And make sure there aren't too many barriers to them doing it.
It sounds like the same strategy that I used to getting my teen daughter to do the dishes. Sounds very similar.
Yeah, I mean,
add more.
It's just people being people, right?
Exactly. So in preparing for today, I heard a term that you've used. I love it, by the way. Mountain of engagement. What is a mountain of engagement?
Oh, yeah. Is it all right if I share my screen?
Yeah, of course.
All right, excellent. This is, I find this works better with the visuals. So I got this ready for you. Hang on. So the mountain of engagement is it's the opposite of this. If you build it, they will come. It's recognizing that everyone who interacts with you is on a journey. So they're going to start in a very kind of low commitment way. All right, my image finally came up here. So let me know if you can see.
There we go. Perfect, Alex.
All right, excellent. Okay, yeah. So you can think about the journey that your audience goes on as like climbing a mountain. So someone is walking along and they look up and go, "Oh my gosh, a mountain!" And in this imaginary world, mountains just stick up out of the ground with nothing around them. We'll suspend our disbelief for a moment. So you're walking along.
Perfect.
And you say, "Oh wow, a mountain." If you're not the mountain type, you might go, "Oh, cool," and just keep walking. If you're a mountain kind of person, you might say, "Oh, this is a great mountain. I'm glad I found it." And you might start poking around the base of it. So at this stage, you have discovered the mountain and you're interested to know more. So you might look around and say, "Oh, there's an interpretive panel at the base of this mountain. It's going to tell me more." Right? And so then you might read that interpretive panel. And if it interests you, then you might start to climb the mountain. And as you go, you get more and more invested in this journey. You might decide, "Oh, I'm tired, I'm going to turn around," or you might decide to keep going closer and closer to the top. And so you can think about your audience as being on a journey like this. They are discovering you, they're looking at you, figuring out if you are what they're looking for to fill a hole in their life, to meet a need for them. If they decide that you are, they might keep going. They might find ways to be more active in the way that they engage with you. And as they go, they might actually start to, put their money and their time where their mouth is. They might start donating. They might start volunteering. They might start getting involved in your mission. And as they go, they might even become leaders in your organization. So boards of directors, champions who are going out into the community, holding fundraisers for you, etc. But you can't just leap from the bottom of the mountain to the top. You need to go up that mountain. And you as a communicator, as an organization, you are like their guide on that journey. You need to recognize that every step they take is effort on their part. And so you need to make it worthwhile for them. And you need to make it as easy for them as possible and show them the way so they don't get lost, get frustrated, and move on. And so this is a tool that I use when I'm working with organizations on developing their communication strategy. And we think about at every step of this journey, how does your target audience participate in that? How do they discover you? How do they start following in the sense of passively collecting information about you and deciding whether they're into you? How do they interact with you when they want to get more actively involved? How do they support you? And what are the barriers to them moving to each step? And how do we overcome those barriers? So this is an analogy that I use to really go through that journey that your supporters go through and figuring out how to move them along it most effectively.
Mhm. It's so interesting. I'm such a visual learner, so this was really helpful to have that visual for sure. You mentioned barriers, that they may come up against barriers. Walk us through some of the pitfalls that we don't want to fall into.
Right. Well, okay. So, I mean, if we were talking earlier about social media, if you are putting all of your promotion into Facebook and you're trying to capture Gen Z attention, you're trying to get the youth aren't on Facebook. I'm saying this as if I were an old lady, but you know, I know now. I'm older than I look. Anyway, so you know, youth aren't on Facebook because their parents are on Facebook and they don't want to be where their parents are. And so, are you putting your information in the place where your audience is going to see it? It can also be things like, you know, maybe your audience isn't on social media. Maybe they want to go to events, and so you need to be at those events. And when you meet them, you need to have a way to follow up with them. Are you collecting their information? Do you have material that's going to be easy for them to read and digest so they know who you are? Is your website easy to find? Is it easy to navigate? If it's too complicated, too text heavy, most people are going to go, no, thank you, and move on, right? Is it easy to get in touch with a human being at your organization? If they want to donate, do they know how to do that? Do you have a clear call to action? And if any of these pieces are missing, then you can just stop them on their journey. And then they don't go any further, right? Because every step that they take is effort on their part. And if it's too much effort, they just won't bother. People are busy, you know, groceries are expensive. We have stuff to do and not a whole lot of time to do it. And so it's identifying all of those little pieces that are going to make it harder than it needs to be for people to move up to that supporting and that leading level.
Well, very well said. And, you know, you really struck a chord with me when you were talking about, you know, is the real people behind this organization? You know, nothing makes me more crazy than you can't pick up the phone and actually call somebody and get somebody on their other line. Info at can only take you so far, Alex, in terms of that one-way or that two-way communication. So often we're wanting to push information out to people. How important is it that we have that two-way dialogue? If somebody is commenting on something on social media, that we have that dialogue with them. I'm not talking about rude stuff. I'm talking about real engagement.
Yeah. Good faith comments, question. Yeah, I think it's really important. Actually, one of my greatest lessons in this work actually came from a client. So someone who came to me to learn, and then she said this thing in a workshop that really stayed with me. She said, people don't support you because they understand you. They support you because they feel like you understand them. And so if you are showing a genuine interest in the people that you are trying to engage with, that you're trying to serve, they are going to be more interested in engaging with you because they feel understood. They feel like you are looking out for them and they're going to want to return that favor.
And we've really seen a shift in communications, and I'll sort of maybe call it 3-5 years ago, where very much it became, you know, the language of a human as opposed to organizational speak. How important is it that we put a face on those communications?
I mean, I think it's huge. And, you know, lots of people have different preferences. And so this is where it comes back to really understanding your audience and what they're looking for. But definitely, if you are trying to engage the general population, you want it to be human. People are more likely to empathize if they see a human face, if they see a human name. I mean, you know, we see the consequences of anonymity online, and where people just get so fractured and, you know, and mean to each other and horrible. But when you're face to face with a human being, you have more empathy. You are going to be more collaborative, more supportive. And so the more we can put human faces in front of people, the more we can activate that empathy and make them care, right? Because people, as much as we like to think that we are rational beings, we're very much emotional beings. And if we don't feel an emotional connection to something, it doesn't matter how much sense it makes, we're unlikely to go out of our way to, you know, to make an effort and to put resources into something. We need to feel that emotional connection in order to have that motivation to do it. So yeah, so being able to connect with other human beings is generally speaking, yeah, very, very important. There are some, I mean, I'm thinking about, a person in my life who like doesn't want to pick up the phone and talk to a human, just wants to send an email. And, that's fine. There are people who are like that. And there are definitely some audiences who want to know that you have a well-structured machine, so to speak, that that lends credibility to know that you have systems in place and it's not just one person working off the side of their desk, even though oftentimes, let's be honest, for small nonprofits, that's what it is. But so you want to strike that balance. Are they going to want to see the humans? Are they going to want to see that you have systems and processes in place? Where do you balance that?
Mm-hmm. Can we talk a little bit about communication plans? Because I think, sometimes even just saying that word, some people maybe on the line today sort of got a shiver down their back, and a communication plan might feel like a big giant document that, would take all these drawers to fill, right? I mean, basically a communications plan could be as simple as one page, just get something down. Talk to me a little bit about just something down on the page to start somewhere.
Yeah. So, okay. So I'm going to start by drawing a distinction, because sometimes we talk about communication strategy, we talk about communications plan, and sometimes we talk about them interchangeably, just for the purpose of this conversation. So when I say words, you and everyone else knows what I'm talking about. In my world, a communication strategy is a high level thing. It's thinking about who's your audience, what are your goals, how do you connect to that audience so you can achieve your goals, and it's it's kind of a longer term thing that, when I just sent one to a client, and I think it was about 20 easy to read pages long, graphics heavy, 20 pages. But it doesn't need to be. That's a lot of, exposition and, explanation and some pretty pictures and stuff. A communications plan is, how are we going to put this into effect? This is the who, the what, the where, the when, the why, right? The how. So, what platforms are we going to be on? How often are we going to post? Whose job is it to do this? It can include like, what's our branding? So all of our things have certain colors, are in certain fonts, so that it's recognizable to people that this is coming from our organization and not just this jumble of things that could come from anywhere. So it doesn't need to be complicated at all. It's just kind of, who are we talking to? How are we talking to them? And, what's the messaging that we use, and what's our goal in terms of, consistency and timeline. So yeah, it can be a page, especially if you have a very short amount of time to communicate with an intern. At least having, just a short document that says, here's what we post, here's what we don't.
For sure. For sure. And just starting somewhere, right? I mean, I think
exactly.
I think
and it can grow
it's just it's like anything. It's just try and get some stuff down. You've talked a little bit today about internal audiences, and, some of my biggest challenges in my work have been not what's happening out there, but sometimes it's the frustration of what's happening internally and what we're sharing and how we're sharing it. Nobody that works for an organization wants to be surprised about what that organization is doing. So talk to me a little bit about best practices around internal communications.
Oh, it's a great question. So I am a big fan of having regular check-ins. I know there's this feeling of this meeting could have been an email, and sometimes that's the case, but there is very much value in sitting down, especially if you're a small team, to just chat about what's going on and give people a chance to ask questions. I work with organizations that have regular town halls when they're bigger organizations, because people need to be able to have that conversation. And I have been in jobs where stuff was not going well and the leadership didn't communicate that, but people knew. You can figure out, people are smart and they can tell when something is up. But if the leadership is not open about those challenges, then people will start filling in the blanks of the worst case scenarios. And so it's about knowing your audience and thinking about what's going to be meaningful to them, what are they going to be concerned about, and speaking directly to that. And sometimes, as a manager, as a leader, your concerns are going to be somewhat different from the people on your team. You're going to be thinking at the high level, but maybe your intern is thinking about their role and their future. And so what they're going to want to know about is their role and their future. And so you don't need to get into maybe the budget. You don't need to get into governance. Talk to them about what's relevant to them, and don't muddy the waters, I would say, with all the stuff that they just don't care about and that is not relevant to them.
Another, sort of pitfall that I see smaller organizations fall into is they have this great momentum around a campaign or around an issue, and they have this great sort of surge and excitement around their communications, and then it's like, boink, and they fall off, and you don't see them for 3 months, and then what? They pop up again. The consistency. Can we talk a little bit about consistency?
Yeah. And I have so much empathy for organizations that end up in that situation, because oftentimes it's because you lose your staff person who was doing that. The turnover is, the communication can become a victim of high staff turnover. But a follow-up is so important. And so when we're talking about a communications plan, if you have a campaign, there needs to be a plan for lead up, during it, and after. How do we follow through on that? And sometimes it means, we're going to plan this all out as far in advance as we can. And we're going to maybe, schedule some newsletters to go out, some social posts to go out, so that we keep people thinking about that, and have it in the calendar. Okay, like we need to follow up with this person who played a key role in this campaign. We need to follow up with them 2 weeks later, a month later. Make sure that it is in the calendar, that somebody owns it. And that's the biggest thing, is somebody needs to own these tasks. And it's less important who it is than the fact that
so true.
Somebody has it and knows that they have it.
Absolutely. And knows they have it. Yes, that's always key. Oh, I didn't know that was me.
Yeah. So talking about internal communication, I mean, one of the biggest pitfalls is, people are sitting there wondering, oh, but whose responsibility is it? But nobody asks because they don't want it to be theirs, right? And
for sure.
So, yeah.
For sure. Is there
having a document that is shared with everybody? So in a meeting, we're writing down, so and so is going to do this, so and so is going to do this, or sending out an email after to recap. This is what we're doing. This person does it. Yeah.
Is there a bad time to communicate?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I'm curious where that question came from.
Well, the question sort of came from, I think about, I think about things that have happened in the world. If there's something that's, a very big issue that's happened, or a tragedy that's happened that may have sort of going across a lot of different audiences, you may want to pull your happy email that day.
Yes.
Right. So I was kind of referring to those types of scheduled things. It's okay to schedule. This is just in my mind. You're the expert, but I think if I'm going to schedule something through Hootsuite or something like that, but also have to keep on a mind of what's going on in the world, right?
Yes.
So if you've had something tragically happen in your city, and that day you're saying, oh, come on, everybody, get together for cake, we're celebrating today, that may have to be shifted to another day. Would you agree?
Yeah. No, that's absolutely fair. And that's an excellent point. I guess what I would say is there is no bad time to communicate. There are important contexts that determine what you communicate. And so absolutely, you wake up and there's horrible news on the first thing you need to do when you turn on your computer is check, do I have something scheduled that's going to be inappropriate to go out today? That is, very best practice.
Absolutely.
Take a look at the news. And I mean, I hate reading the news, honestly. It gets so depressing, but you need to keep on top of that just to know, is there something big that's going to affect how what we're putting out is perceived? So keeping on top of that, acting immediately to make sure that there wasn't something scheduled that's going to be inappropriate, and maybe saying something different. And it is so tricky. I keep saying this. It's tricky, but it is tricky. As an organization, something major happens in the world. It's controversial. You are expected to make a statement, but I have seen organizations really. A very crude figure of speech came into my mind. I'm not going to say it, but you've done this badly. And so you want to make sure that if it's sensitive, that you are consulting a little bit. Talk to the board, maybe, say,
Mhm.
here's what I want to say. Are you okay with this? Just to make
Mhm.
sure that, the wording of it is sensitive. If anyone has insight about, how it might be perceived, they can weigh
Mhm.
in. You don't want one person just firing off,
Mhm.
a, a text in 30 seconds about Black Lives Matter, for example, when
Mhm.
something explodes one morning.
Agreed. Agreed. And when you think about sort of the plan, you've got your plan, let's say you've got your overall strategy, this is what you're going to accomplish. How important is it to also, you've kind of touched on a little bit, but to bring other players to the table? Because I find the communications that I'm probably most proud of in my career are ones that there was collaborative effort on. And you may not have a lot of people to collaborate with, but even having, somebody take an extra look at it, that's where those those spelling mistakes can be found, even, or anything like that, right? Just anything that might look a little bit off, or the wording of something. I think it's important not to do this in isolation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I absolutely agree. If you can have another set of eyes on it, it makes a big difference. And even, we think about the wording, we think about the message, but even things like the font, right? So I have, caught things going out the door that, it was a very frilly font that would be hard to read by someone with a visual impairment, and so
Mhm.
accessibility is another thing that we're looking for. So yeah, absolutely. Where possible, collaborating on things, especially when they're sensitive, but
Mhm.
just in general. And I think it's also worth, looking out for each other. Like maybe something goes out and then you see it and you think, oh, like I'm not sure about that, or I think that there's an accessibility problem with this post or whatever. Messaging the person, and just in a kind way, saying, hey, I have this,
Yeah.
This concern, and I just want to put it on your radar.
Yeah, absolutely. Very well said. We're getting ready to take questions from everybody here, which I'm very excited about. We have a couple of examples here. Giselle is asking, can you give some examples of non-quantitative KPIs that small shops might use to measure the success of their communication efforts? What a fabulous question.
Yeah. So one thing you could do is, for example, asking, when people donate, or if you have a membership model or something like that, when they come in, ask, how did you find us? So that's a big one. Just, figuring out that journey, that path that they are on. One thing that I've worked with clients on is for funders or potential funders. If you have developed a relationship with them, ask for feedback on how you're doing, how you're communicating what you do, if they have any questions, so that they can come back to you. And you can't just go up to a person you've never met before. Hey, I sent you a letter of interest. Do you mind giving me, spending some time giving me feedback? But if you've developed a relationship, you have some trust and can ask them, hey, how do you see us, and how do the people in your orbit see us? And do you have any suggestions for us? Do you have any questions? That can really give you a lot of information about how you're being perceived, which tells you how effective your communications are.
For sure. Very well said. And, we've got, there was a lot of excitement around the quote that you shared, in terms of it's been summarized here: people support your org not because they understand you, but because they feel you understand them. So that's got a lot of attention, Alex, just so you know, in terms of
It's
the
a
chat.
good one.
And I
And
think
one of these days I need to Google and see if I can find the origin of that. All I can say, I did not come up with it. I don't know where it came from, but I should.
You could have t-shirts made. You could have t-shirts. Yeah, very fantastic. For everybody at CBI. So I think that's a really good point. I think people have really sort of honed in on that piece in terms of communications. When you think about the mistake that you see people make, is there a mistake you think, oh, I wish I could help them?
Oh, I gotta be careful. So one thing, when you're doing this work, you are in this work all the time. And it's, it's your all day, it's your every day, it's what you think about. And so it can be very easy to get lost in the weeds of what you're doing and not why. And the people who are coming to you want to know why. Why is it important? Why should I care? Basically. And so you want to speak to that. You want to speak to the why before you speak to the what. Once they're invested, you can say, okay, here's what we're going to do. But first you need to get them invested. And so I went to an event once, and I'm gonna leave out the identifying details, but it was an organization that does kind of education, informing the public on environmental issues. And they had an event. They had kind of billed it as, we have this really important story that has happened in Canadian politics. And people came to this event wanting to learn more about this issue. And what this organization did was they talked about all the work it took to uncover the issue and how people should donate in order to help them continue that work. And people were asking questions. They wanted details, right? They wanted details about, what do I need to know? What can I do about this issue? And they didn't get that, right? And so you need to know, why are people coming to you and what are they looking for? And give them that. And then you can, give them the sell. If you want us to continue doing this important work and providing you the value we just provided you, here's what we need in order to keep this going. But you can't put the what before the why.
Can't put the what before the why. You heard it here at CBI from Alex Keenan. You can't put the what before the why. I love that very much. The other thing we fall into, and when you said, we're in this work all the time, and people that are, coming aren't spending as much time and as passion maybe as we are, this really overlays for me acronyms and terms that we might use internally that we expect outside, sources and outside audiences to understand. And we throw around these acronyms. And I think that can be a barrier too. Would you agree to communicating and
Absolutely.
having that? Yeah.
Yeah, I absolutely. If people can't understand what you're talking about, they're going to tune out. And if they feel like they are, like you were expecting them to be on a level that they're not on, they can feel alienated, and that leads to disengagement. And so it's not about talking down to people. It's just about understanding where are they and meeting them there, and then holding their hand and bringing them up the mountain with you. Yeah. There's actually, if I can share a resource that I really love for this, there is a series of videos by Wired, and it's called Explained 5 Ways. And so they have experts in, astrophysics and all kinds of fields, and they will explain a topic, for example, black holes, to a child, to a teenager, to an undergrad, to a grad student in that field, and then to an expert. And so they explain the same topic at different levels of complexity. And it's so interesting to watch how they break it down, and they meet that person where they are in terms of their understanding of the topic. And it's such a wonderful exercise. Can I explain this to a 5-year-old? Can I explain this to my elderly parents? And once you can break it down that much, you can explain it to anybody.
Well, now that's what I want to do tonight. I want to watch all of those. That sounds like that's awesome.
Julie, I'm gonna put it in the chat. I just had a question.
Yeah, that'd be great.
So it's the media company is called Wired, and I think the series is called Explained 5 Ways.
How smart is that? I can think of all different ways we could use that in the sector, actually, too. Just my mind's in overdrive. We have a great question here from Jordan. Tips and tricks for working around social media algorithms. Is there an ideal way to structure and plan posts so they're not being suppressed and are actually reaching your audience? Is this a case of pay to play, Alex?
So this is a bit outside of my area of expertise. I'm going to be really honest about that. But you want to pay this. Okay. And the thing about algorithms is they are secret. And so no one outside of social media companies really knows what works. But a few things that I do know. So for your website, a friend of mine is a marketer, and she taught me this trick. Google My Business is something that Google uses to determine how highly it ranks your website. So if you open a Google My Business account, so you have your address, your phone number, some information about your organization, and every so often just post something, hey, we published this blog post, just put it on Google My Business.
Right.
Happy Valentine's Day, right? As long as you are consistently keeping up with content on that, it will keep your website ranked higher. So it's just an easy way. You don't have to make new stuff up. Just what you're posting on social media, what you're posting on your blog, just pop it on there every so often.
I love that.
Yeah. For social media, I mean, first of all, you want to be aware of the things that seem to be getting organizations blocked or demonetized on their controversial topics seem to bump you lower. So just be aware, even a word that in context is not controversial, if it's associated with something that is controversial, it might work against you. Take a look at the hashtags that are being used that are related to your topic, and find out which ones are being followed, which ones are really popular, and use those so you get more visibility among the people who are interested in that. And so people will follow hashtags just related to their interests. And so especially on something like Instagram, on LinkedIn, you could just come into somebody's view, be discovered. Oh, look, a mountain. That's how you get onto someone's radar that didn't even know that you existed before.
So we've got another question. Gisela asks, now that Facebook doesn't allow you to target people based on political views, etc. anymore, do you have any helpful tips on effective ways to target paid ads?
Again, paid ads, a little bit outside my expertise, but one thing you might want to do is think about, so people who have certain political views, what else are they interested in? The people who, and this is one thing, when you're doing a communication strategy, it's really helpful to create what's called an audience avatar. And so this is an imaginary person who's part of your ideal audience. And you start to do some research on them, like what media do they follow? What other interests do they have? What kind of education do they have? And then you can start to build this profile. Not everyone is going to match this profile perfectly, but you can say, the people who follow us, they tend to like CBC radio. I don't know. So you figure out what are the other things that they like, kind of like, if you go on Amazon and you buy a book, they'll say people who bought this book also bought X, Y, and Z. So, people who like this, who have this political view also like X, Y, and Z. And then you can use those. They're not directly political views, but they're kind of proxies for it. We live in a world where, your interest, your views on science, everything has become a marker of your political ideology. And so it's actually not difficult to identify, people who believe this probably also take this view.
Brilliant. I think that's fantastic. And I think too, when we think about communications, when we think about whether it be a call to action for donations or whether it's any advocacy work, any of those things, we're actually hoping somebody will sign a petition, all of those opportunities, there's others doing that work. So how do you make yours stand out? If you're working in in an organization and they're talking about something as broad as climate change, how do you make yours stand out? Do you go really niche or do you stay really broad?
So I'm going to give you a very lawyer answer, and that is it depends.
Yeah,
it depends. So it largely depends on what you're trying to accomplish. And so if you, your mission is to get people that are very, very engaged, then you probably want to go niche, because you want to get people who are going to really, really see themselves in what you're doing. And it's hard for people to see themselves in climate change unless they are, unless they're hardcore climate change people. They can't see themselves in this. But if it's comic book fans against climate change, right? People are going to go, oh, that's me, and I get to interact with people who are like me, who share my interests, who share my values. That's going to attract people, and they're going to go, that's the organization I want to be with, because those are my people. And so in that case, if you're looking for deep engagement, going more niche can be very, very helpful. If you are trying to get, for example, something that's a low commitment, like a, a petition. Language is hard. Like a petition, you probably want to go kind of broad, and you want to make it super easy for people to find it and to engage with it.
Absolutely.
Because you're going for volume at that point instead of depth.
Exactly.
Yeah.
100%. So we've got another question here. Jillian's asking, is it more effective to pay for ads or to create amplification packages or to send to your most engaged followers? What do you recommend with commenting and messaging engaged followers, both on social and through email?
Oh, that is a good question. And my honest answer is I don't really know in terms of what is more effective. I suspect that's also an it depends kind of thing. And how accurately are you able to target your audience through paid ads? Are you asking, a high value ask, in which case it's probably more effective to go to the people who have already expressed support? Or are you trying to bring more people into the discovery in the following stage and just grow your audience?
And let me ask you, Alex, pardon?
It depends. And I'm curious, Sam, if you have anything to add there, because I know you.
No, I think I agree with you. Like, I think about a big project that I do every sort of October and November, and, we want volume. So we, we're everywhere. But then I think for other sort of, campaigns that we do, we're very, very niche. We're mailing to a segmentation, for instance. So it once again, it depends. Stealing your lines. So let's end our chat today. We've only got a couple minutes left, but I want to end it on a note where people feel like, they can walk away and do something today. If you were to sort of, encourage somebody to do one or two or even three things in terms of communications, where would you have them focus?
The first thing that I always get people to do is really zero in on their audience. So the people who, again, are interested in helping and who have the capacity, the ability to help. And that's going to be your key audience. It's going to be, the easiest one to reach. It's going to be the most, cost and resource effective to reach. And if you don't already have that, it's to figure out who those people are. And there might be a couple. So for example, you've got funders, you've got, the people who are volunteering and maybe policymakers who are enacting the things that you want. So maybe you have three key audiences. Based on, what you're trying to do today, who do you need to reach in order to achieve your goal? And really understand them. So I sometimes use the analogy of potato head, right? Formerly Mr. Potato Head, now gender neutral potato head. But so, you get this plastic thing with nothing on it. And when we're thinking about, my audience is everybody, it's just this plastic thing with a bunch of holes in it. And there's nothing really to look at. So you need to start putting, the face, are they happy? Are they angry? Are they scared? Who are they? Where do you find them? What do they have in their hand? Do they have a book representing knowledge? Do they have a big purse full of money? Who are you looking for? Start to zero in on who that person is. And that's going to make it a lot easier to do all the other steps, which is figuring out how are they climbing that mountain of engagement and how do I help them and how do I get them there?
Wow. I'll never look at Potato Head the same way ever again. You've helped me a lot, Alex. Lots of great information today. And I know you've got lots to offer as well. People could reach out to you, Alex, if they have any questions.
Yes,
and,
absolutely.
We've definitely gone through lots of great information today. A big thank you to Alex Keenan for sharing all of her communications knowledge and experience with us today. I could have gone another hour easily. Love talking about this stuff with you. Big shout out, of course, to Hannah Rockburn. What will we do without Hannah? She is literally our rock here at CBI when we run these webinars. So thank you so much, Hannah, for everything you do. And Natushka, it's been so nice to meet you today for the very first time. I look forward to working with you. And a big thank you to everybody who puts this in their calendar, month after month and joins us for these. We're getting ready, of course, for May already. We're getting ready as well for June, July. We're going to be there. Don't you worry, with all sorts of different topics in regards to everything CBI does. And, I think next month, my apologies, we'll focus on finances, which is always one that has a lot of questions around it. So we look forward to that. Thank you so much. Yes, financing for small shops. There you go, right there. See, Hannah's on it. May 8th. Thank you so much for spending time with us. And I hope you've taken away one or two or maybe 10 ideas from Alex today. I'm Sam Laprade. Thank you so much for joining us at CBI. Bye.
Thanks, everybody.